every secret of a writer's soul, every experience of his life, every quality of his mind is written large in his works. Virginia Woolf. Welcome to Books on Air, the podcast you don't want to miss. I'm Suzanne Harris, and you're about to get a sneak peek at what goes on behind the scenes with an author. We'll find out their secret recipe for creating a book. They'll tell you where they get their ideas, and you're going to get the inside scoop on their newest projects. Want to know more? Great. We'll tell you where to find them on social media. Are you ready? Okay, let's meet today's author. Now, I have to tell you that the author I am going to introduce you to today is a real hero. His name is Jonathan Salisbury, and he's here to talk about his latest novel, Blood Bonded, The Portal and Key Chronicles, Volume 1. Jonathan served over 10 years in the United States Air Force as an explosives ordnance disposal technician. He was awarded the Bronze Star for operations in Iraq, and he's been deployed to multiple combat zones. He has a BS in criminal justice, and he currently works in law enforcement, serving as a police officer and a SWAT explosives breacher. Jonathan, wow, when I read your bio, the first thing I want to thank you for is not only your service in the United States Air Force, but also your service as a police officer. You are a brave, brave man, and thank you so much for being my guest today on Books on Air.
Thank you, Suzanne. I appreciate it. Glad to be here.
I want to talk about your writing. This is so interesting for me. I've discovered I'm a curious person, and so I will often talk with authors about how they came to writing. The stories are all over the place. Some people started writing as small children. Some people had a relative that they emulated as a writer. Some people had a teacher who recognized talent. Other people come at it from a totally different direction. They had a life experience that is a seminal experience for them, and they want to share that experience with other people, or they feel like they need to do something for themselves to get whatever the information is out there. What brought you to writing, and how old were you when you first started?
I think it's actually kind of a mix of the things that you had mentioned. I have always kind of been interested in writing. I started in high school, creative writing, and it's just always been something I've enjoyed doing, but never quite felt confident enough to tackle a book or a novel. It was several years ago. I was actually toying with the idea of starting a novel, but I kept putting it off because I didn't quite know how to begin. I had all these ideas going in my head, and I just wasn't sure how to put them on paper. But I remember one day this sentence popped into my head, and I just said to myself, that is a perfect sentence, and that is how I'm going to start my novel. And that's when I started writing my current book. I just started putting words on paper. And the ideas started flowing. I think to help with that, though, when I started my novel, I was dealing with a lot of personal troubles. It was around the 10-year anniversary of when my friend Walt was killed in Iraq. And I had never quite dealt with it the way it probably should have been dealt with. I wasn't able to attend his funeral or memorial service because I was deployed at the time. And every year on his anniversary of his death, it just sort of came back. Well, it kind of came back really hard on that 10-year anniversary. I had shut down before then, really. having kind of troubles in my, relationships with people and really opening up to them. All of my own doing. But my wife, being the amazing person that she is, really helped me through that and helped me break out of my shell and helped me be more honest with myself, which in turn helped me be more honest with other people around me. And that came out in my writing. Writing almost became a cathartic outlet for me, almost therapeutic in a way.
Perfect word. That's exactly what I was going to ask, is if you had if this was a cathartic experience for you.
It truly was. It really helped me explore my emotions. It helped me become more confident in who I was. I could vent about troubles. I could laugh all through my writing.
I love it. You also were a science fiction reader as a young reader. Who did you particularly enjoy reading when you were young?
I really enjoyed sci-fi and fantasy. I loved reading. I think probably more than any author would be both Piers Anthony and R.A. Salvatore. Those were pretty influential in my younger years. I read a lot of their books and liked their writing style. And it, what I loved about reading those authors is they really help you escape into the novel and the characters. And it was just always a great experience anytime I could pick up one of their books.
You also get to, whenever you write in a science fiction genre, you get to create your own world. You get to create different characters. You get to create your own language if you want to. You get to, there's so much width and breadth in the science fiction genre, don't you think?
Absolutely. There's so much there to explore, and I think that's what I love about it.
Now, you surprised me, I have to say. This is really interesting. You have expectations. When I looked at the title of the book and I thought, okay, Blood Bonded, this sounds like something that's going to be action-packed. And so I opened the first page and I read the words, Eva Higgins, and I thought, he's writing a female lead character. I'm always curious when a man chooses to write in a female voice. Where did Eva come from, and why did you choose a female character as opposed to a male character to be your kick-ass character, if you'll pardon the expression?
Oh, and she is.
I know.
She absolutely is. That is one of my favorite stories, honestly. When I had begun writing this novel, I had written the first few chapters, and I like I said, I wasn't very confident in my writing abilities. My wife was an amazing help through this process, and I gave that to her, and I said, please read this and let me know what you think. I just need some feedback. And I remember after she read it, she gave it back to me and said, it's good, gave me some pointers. She said, I really liked about it is that, your main character is female. And I hadn't written it like that. And I asked her, and I said, well, why did you think she was female? Well, she pointed out a few of the phrases that I had used in writing, and she goes, this is why I think it's a female character, because I really hadn't identified who the character was at that point. My initial thought was, I'm going to write it as a male. But after she said that, it was like a light bulb went off and said, yes, that's how I need to write it. I need to write it as a female. I'm sort of surrounded by them in my life. A daughter, a wife. We have 2 female dogs. I get along really well with my mother-in-law. Just all, and my mother. My mom is an amazing person, and just having all that influence, I just felt like it was right to do that, and it was amazing. It was amazing writing Eva.
She is the book. It starts out, I mean, literally, it is adrenaline pumping from the very first. You read the first paragraph, a little introduction, and then all of a sudden we're plunged into just a world of violence and intrigue. And let's give our listeners a little overview of the book.
Okay. This is a short passage. We join our companions in the alleyway here. Up here, Eva directed them toward the fire escape. Brenner, can you reach the ladder and pull it down? Brenner left the fallen bags and reached his massive hand upward, grabbed the ladder, pulling it down. Eva was the first step, climbing with deft skill. Brenner hefted Derek up to the first rung, who started climbing. Brenner, who still had a bag with him, then climbed. The primal sound continued, closer. Eva made the fire escape up to her floor. She smashed the window out and climbed through her kitchen. She quickly scanned the room and, seeing no threats, turned back to the fire escape. Derek was on her heels, and Brenner followed. Eva turned back into the apartment. She had a small stash of weapons there that would augment her limited supply nicely. She made for her hide. Derek and Brenner climbed in, with Brenner still shouldering the bag. "E, why did we come back to your apartment?" Derek asked when he finally caught his breath. "Hell if I know," Eva answered, just as confused as him. "What the hell do we do now?" Derek asked again. Eva looked at him, not having an immediate answer. The dark pull. It tugged, persistent in her mind. She closed her eyes and tried to push it back. She opened her eyes again, but her vision was blurry. Derek was still talking, but she could not understand what he said. She turned her head and saw Brenner, who was also speaking, directly to her. His speech was modeled in her ears, but his body language spoke of a concern Eva could not understand. She stumbled backward. Eva immediately ran. Derek immediately ran to her and grabbed her arm to keep her from falling. Her momentum was too much, and she took both of them back, landing against the wall, hitting it hard. Brenner leaped up to help grab both of them, pulling them to their feet. Eva swooned again, this time saved by Brenner's grip on her left arm. Derek held her right shoulder. She felt as though her head was going to explode. Eva screamed, but she heard no sound. She threw her head back, hitting the wall. No, not the wall, the mural. She looked at Brenner with wild eyes. He was yelling, she could tell. She could hear nothing. She felt a tingle on her skin, goose flesh raised on her arms. She snapped her head toward the doorway in the exact moment that it burst open. Calder stood in the threshold. Death was in his gaze. Something in his eyes stopped her, though. She could not place it. It frightened her, but held something else, too. She could not make sense of it. Fury built inside of her. This time she let it in. The pull was winning, but she did not fight it this time. The flow was grating at first, but she bared her teeth and used the pain. She turned her fear to anger, anger at having to flee the apartment, anger at the revelation that had been shown to her, anger at the impossible truth of what she was, anger at Abigail's death, the one person who might hold answers to her most profound questions. She did not see Calder anymore. Eva stared at him with rage in her eyes, and then her corporeal vision was blurred. She opened her mind's eye and grabbed hold of the darkness, reversed its flow. No longer was it pulling it to her, she was drawing it in. She stood firm and dived in. A well of power and chaos enveloped her. She felt herself being ripped apart, then she fought still. With all of her anger focused on a single thought, survive and destroy him. Eva let out a primal roar of her own. It echoed in her mind. It became audible to her ears. A blinding flash of colors surrounded her, and Brenner, and Derek. It was beautiful, spellbinding. It surrounded the trio in a cocoon. The world was a blur behind the curtain. A pull, but this time something different. It was physical. She felt herself being thrust down, up, left, right, all at once. It felt as though a mighty wind had picked them up and was drawing them to something. The colors were brilliant. Almost as soon as it had begun, it ended. she felt an impact and fell unconscious.
Wow. All right. As I said, adrenaline pumping. This is at the end of a chase. Calder is a character who has been sent to kill her. And he's from a different place, and they're not human, right?
That's correct, yeah. Calder's sent by Ceann Olc, who is the mastermind behind this, from the realm of Fatir, which is the world that they hail from.
And Eva doesn't know. She's just a regular person until all of this begins to happen, until she is Tell me how that happens. Tell me how she discovers that something's going to happen to her, that she's got a power.
It really is in that passage when she first kind of understands. Eva had struggled her entire life with something that she calls the dark pole, was never really able to understand what that was. She was adopted as a child. She never met her birth parents. She was raised on Earth. And she grew up amazingly smart and eidetic memory. She excelled in school, and then she moved on to become a mercenary, brought up under the tutelage of Mr. Roper, who also plays a part in the novel. And she discovers that what she'd been struggling with her whole life has actually been something wonderful, something that she can actually use to her benefit. But she's brought into it violently and has to quickly figure out what she's going to do.
Now, Derek is another, he's a sidekick, comic relief almost character.
Yeah. Derek, I loved writing Derek. He's probably one of my favorite characters for sure. He is Eva's trusty sidekick, there by her side the entire time. And yeah, he does provide a little comic relief. He's that tongue-in-cheek guy who just calls it as it is, and almost sort of that innocent personality.
Oh, I like the use of the word innocent, because that's exactly how I thought of him and how I pictured him as I read about him and read the things he said and the way he interacts.
Yeah.
Who did you have in mind as a reader for the book?
This might sound odd, but I wanted to write a book that I would want to read. And I like to think that there might be other readers who like that as well, but that was really what drove my creative process and why I wrote the way I did, because I felt like if I was writing for an audience or for someone else, I wouldn't get out what I needed. And so that's really kind of why, or how I wrote the book. I wrote it for something that I would like to read.
I've got a quote that I read when I was doing some research about you for the interview, and I really like this. It said, my life experiences of war and the human condition are the fuel that feeds my writing. And I thought, your action scenes, the book is action-packed. I know there's more to it than that, but the first 3 chapters are a chase scene that is just, you can't, I was exhausted because I'm right there with you. I'm right there with Eva and Derek, and they're running, and the car crashes, and I'm right there with them. And I finished it, and I thought, oh, wow. It was so much fun. Your prose is so graphic and pulls me right into the storyline that I am right there. you do such a wonderful job of painting the picture, painting the scene. It's as if I'm sitting there as I read, and I've jumped into a movie that's running only in my head as I read. That's how graphic I thought your prose was, and I think that's a perfect tone for the kind of novel that you're writing. If you wrote the book for yourself, congratulations, you did a great job. I liked it very much as well. Let's tell our listeners where they can find the book. Now, they can find it in several places. I always talk about Amazon because Amazon is such a big purveyor of books, and so many people use that as their resource. So if they go to just Amazon.com, there's a big search feature at the top of that page, and all they need to do is put in the title. And I want to give the listener the title again. It's called Blood Bonded, The Portal and Key Chronicles, Volume 1, by Jonathan, Jonathan, Salisbury, Salisbury. You could probably just put in Blood Bonded by Jonathan Salisbury and it would come up. Where else, if people don't want to buy it on Amazon, if they prefer to either go to the publisher or go to another website, where else is it available, John?
Yeah, it is available on the publisher's website in paperback and hardback, also an e-edition there. And that's at austinmacauley.com. That's AustinMacauley.com. And you can again search for Blood Bonded, The Portal and Key Chronicles, Volume 1. And it's available paperback and hardback there. It's also available as an ebook at Barnes & Noble and through iTunes as well.
Excellent. Now, they can also go to your website, and there's an excerpt on the website if they want to go to the website and read it. Let's give them your website address.
The website is www.jonathantsalisbury.com.
What else will they find there? I know there's a bio, there's an excerpt from the book. What else is there, Jonathan?
Yeah, I also blog on that website, so I write short stories and flash fiction, which are available there, short 1,000 word or less stories, fiction stories, different genres, and then I blog about other, real life events and things there as well, and then most of my updates for my book will be posted there on my website.
Terrific. And they can, the thing that I hope that they will do is go to the website so that they can really read that excerpt, because it's just so powerful. It's one thing to listen to it. It's another thing to read it and fall right into place with those characters. I mean, it's just terrific. Now, you're also doing some other social media, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn as well. You can find me at JT Salisbury Author on both Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn.
Now, you're going to do something, this is sort of in progress, I think. You're going to do some work to put on a YouTube channel as well. Tell me about that project.
Yeah, so I've got a YouTube channel in progress. I'll be posting things such as this interview and probably nuggets from the book, and that'll be available on my website blog, where I'm also going to be delving into a behind the scenes about the book, go into different character bios, location bios. Some extra information that's not in the novel, but maybe kind of fun for the readers to get a bigger picture of the world that Eva's in.
I love that, because that gives me a backstory of the character.
Yeah.
And I think, I really like that idea. That's a great idea. Now, I assume, and I didn't even ask you this before we started talking, so I'm making an assumption here, that since this is Blood Bonded, The Portal and Key Chronicles Volume 1, I'm assuming that there's going to be more than one volume. Is that right?
Yes. So I'm in progress with book number 2. In fact, I just finished it last week. So it's in the editing process now, and there will be a third one after that, and we'll see after that.
Yay. I'm glad the story continues. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. Now, this is, I've said it, it's an action-packed novel. It's science fiction. It's got really interesting characters. It's got a kick-ass female main character. When our listeners become readers and they buy their copy of the book, whether it's electronic or physical, when they close that last page or when they finish that last page and metaphorically or literally close the back cover, do you want them to leave just feeling like they have been thoroughly and completely entertained and escaped into a totally different world, and that's all that there is for the book is entertainment and escape, and that's a wonderful thing? Or is there anything else that you want them to take away?
I do hope that they are entertained by it, and it's a fun read. But the novel, in my mind, is really about finding yourself, about trust, about being vulnerable. And I hope that they take some of that away, and that somehow helps them if they were struggling like I was struggling, that it gives them something to look forward to, maybe help break them out of their shell as well.
Well, and this time that we're in right now, we need escape and we need a place to go. And a world like you've created is a wonderful place to do that. And the quote that I used at the beginning before we really started talking, every secret of a writer's soul, every experience of his life, every quality of his mind is written large in his works. That's a quote that I got from you on your website, and it's said by Virginia Woolf. And I think that that's exactly what you've done with this book. We see into the writer's soul. We see into the writer's mind. We see into the writer's experience. And you've just done a masterful job with this book. I want to thank you so much for being my guest today. It was just an absolute pleasure. I could keep talking to you for another hour, and I know you can feel that. But we have to stop. It's just been so much fun. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Suzanne. I really appreciate it.
And remember, you can find Blood Bonded, The Portal and Key Chronicles, Volume 1 by Jonathan Salisbury on Amazon. You've been listening to the Books on Air podcast, brought to you on webtalkradio.net. And by the way, you can also hear this podcast on iTunes as well as iHeartRadio. I'm Suzanne Harris, and I hope that you'll join our next Books on Air podcast. Remember, you never know who's going to be here. Thank you so very much for listening.